Oh my God, there's something flying in the air. Does anyone know a Mike who died? A Mike, M-I-C. Does that resonate with anyone?
Remember when we were kids? And we all swore that none of us were the ones moving the little heart-shaped piece on the Ouija board. It was me. Sorry. I lied. I was the one moving it. But say, even if it wasn't me manipulating the board, can someone who has died actually send us messages? Be it through board games, dreams, or psychic mediums? Do you believe? Do you believe it's actually possible to communicate with someone from the other side?
To me, honestly, I don't much care whether mystery's paranormal or historical or forensic or whatever. I've investigated homicides, for example, for a police department. And it's all the same to me if it's a good mystery and I think I have possibly a chance to solve it.
That's Joe Nickel, a senior research fellow for the Committee for Skeptical Inquiry and the world's most elite paranormal investigator. I've invited him to the show to be the voice of reason. Joe doesn't believe. Actually, belief has nothing to do with it because he's a scientific investigator and deals only in the facts, Jack. And factually, communicating with the dead has never been scientifically proven to be possible. Proof. What's the fun in proof? It's certainly not going to stop me from trying to have a little chat.
I wouldn't be doing this if anything negative were going to be happening whatsoever.
And that's psychic Betsy. I've invited her to my home to conduct a seance.
I hold the light, that's my job, and, I only get empowering information. It's really just all that I get. You won't have any of your skeletons come out of the closet either, so you can just rest assured that everything's going to be comfortable. And it's important to know that the seance is a combination of all of our energies, even the sound guy, even the pup here, which I'm glad he's up here. Yes, yeah.
The pup is, of course, Cletus. And Christopher Moss, that sound guy, will be recording everything that is about to happen as we turn off the lights and begin a journey into the spirit world. Please join me on episode 2 of the Adventures of Memento Mori, Communicating with the Dead.
From the Maida Creative Company, this is the Adventures of Memento Mori, a seeker's guide for learning to live by remembering to die. The podcast that explores mortality. Here's your host, D.S. Moss.
This episode's adventure never actually leaves my house. It all began a few months ago when my neighbor, Ben, came over for a drink. I don't remember exactly at what point the conversation turned to death, but it did. And we began talking about friends who we knew that had died too early. Ben told me a story of a childhood friend who, after passing, left him a message from the other side.
To this day, it's the only thing that makes me question the afterlife and what is there outside of our known sort of edges of the physical world. It just seems so... The timing was perfect. What he said was perfect. Perfect in the sense that it was him, and I could just imagine him saying that to me before he left.
His story made me wonder, is it really possible? Here's Ben in his own words.
I guess we were like 18. We were just kind of leaving school. We were friends from school. We shared a lot. We were both aspiring artists, about to transition into a pretty relaxed art school. And this was the summer before that happened, so we'd left school. We both had summer jobs. So we were very close. We both sort of shared our summer job experiences. We spoke almost every day. And his summer job was great because he worked in a pub. My summer job was shit because I worked in this horrible assembly line factory on an industrial estate just outside Portsmouth in England. And my job was to... it changed every week. There was like a rotation system because if you did any one job for too long, you'd have all sorts of mental problems because they were just so mundane and boring. And you got paid by the number. So the more repetitions of this thing that you did, and it was usually in the thousands, the more your hourly rate went up. So for example, if you did 3,000 of these simple repetitive tasks a day, you would get £4.50 an hour. So it was really in your interest to kind of to buckle down and go for it because it meant your hourly rate went up. But what it did produce were these kind of weird sort of daydream type states where you'd get lost. My friend Nick had, with his hard-earned money from working in the pub, decided to take his holiday early and go to Florida. And I sort of carried on working at the factory. And then one day, I had a particularly lonely task that involved 3 hand movements. You take a shell casing, put it on this thing, press 2 buttons, put it on a pile. And I remember very, very clearly having this daydream, and it's the only thing that I can recall that leads you to think that there is something beyond death. So I'm sitting there doing this task, and I have this daydream, and it's clear as day. I can remember it right now. I was looking down at myself doing this repetitive task. And my friend Nick just says to me, "Don't worry about it. I'll tell you which horses to bet on." And that had been a bit of a joke between us. Not massively, but we were always trying to think up ways of how we could get rich quick. Gambling as an 18-year-old boy was, seemed quite seductive. And I remember clear as day, him saying that in his voice. And then didn't think anything of it. And then at the end of the day, my parents were standing at the gate to the factory, which was very unusual. I walked out and my dad just said, "Nick Caddick's been killed." Just like that. And I'll never forget him saying it like that, because killed seems such a harsh word. That's what he said, "Nick Caddick's been killed." And it turns out that he'd been on his holiday in Florida and he'd met a couple of friends at the hostel he was staying at. And Nick, being Nick, got drunk, as we so often had done together, and had happily strolled out into the road and looked the wrong way in his drunken state. A classic rookie mistake. The traffic is on the other side of the road in the US. Before he knew what happened, he'd been hit by this truck. He died not long after getting to the hospital, I don't think. And it turns out that the time of death was roughly the same time that I had had my horse betting daydream in the factory.
I told Ben a story that night too. You'll hear it a bit later. It's not about communicating with the dead though, but of an encounter right before someone died. Someone who I swear to this day knew their card had been pulled. And so, my reason for participating in a seance was to simply connect to the spirit world and ask him, "Did you really know you were about to die?"
Hello, fellow provocateurs who believe death is a topic worth talking about. We need your help spreading the word. Be the slightly odd yet endlessly fascinating conversationalist at your next party, and tell your friends about the Adventures of Memento Mori. Want to stay in the loop? Join our inner circle by going to our site, theadventuresofmementomori.com, and be sure to stay up to date with the quest for enlightenment on YouTube by following our channel, The Adventures of Memento Mori podcast. And now, back to the show.
My name is Betsy Cohen, aka Psychic Betsy. I'm a psychic medium, intuitive development coach, and teacher.
So before we all sat down, Psychic Betsy asked all of us to clear our minds as much as possible and don't come in with any preconceived notions of who we want to talk to and really what we want to ask them. Of course, I ignored these instructions because I knew exactly who I wanted to talk with. I did find those instructions a little bit curious, though, so I asked Betsy if we could actually get messages from spirits we didn't know. And then, do the spirits pick us, or do we pick the spirits?
There are no limits. In fact, James Franco and I did a seance on stage where we summoned Tennessee Williams. It's all about intention. For me personally, when I hold a reading, whether it's a seance or a one-on-one, my intention is to connect with people that you've either known or that you can look back into your history, talk to people and get information about them. And those spirits are there to help the living. Any spirit who is not here, that is not positive, and that is not here specifically to help the living, is not welcome in my work.
Okay, enough with all the setup. Let's start the seance.
What's going to happen is in just a few minutes, we're going to shut off the lights. We're going to say a prayer of intention and protection, and I'm going to lead us through guided meditation. And after that, I'll start to give messages.
Because this experience is extremely personal, we are keeping the participants' names anonymous. There were 10 people present, and instead of creating a montage and a highlight reel of all 10, which wouldn't be fair to anybody, you're just going to hear 2 readings in their entirety. The first one simply being the first reading of the evening, and then mine. Okay, see you on the other side.
All right, so what we're going to do is we're just going to close our eyes and take some deep breaths. And I know it sounds kind of funny, but I invite you to feel into your sitting bones, so that's really your butt. So once you bring feeling there, you're just going to send your breath there through your imagination and intention. Great Spirit, all that is, thank you so much for bringing us here together today. It is with love, joy, and gratitude in our hearts we recognize there is a white light that surrounds us all. It's allowing us to raise our vibrations, and it's making communication with our own higher selves and those on the other side clear, easeful, accurate, and detailed. It's at this time that we visualize our loved ones coming and standing behind us, contributing their loving energy, contributing their messages with accuracy and detail, connecting with our energy, connecting all of our energies together, feeling their presence with our own hearts, allowing them to amplify the energy, to give us empowering information, and so it is. So over the course of the next 3 breaths, you're invited to bring your awareness back into the circle. And whenever you're ready, you can open up your eyes. Okay, I'd like to start with you, and I didn't catch your name. I'm getting a male in spirit for you. I'm feeling as though he's a grandfather. I feel as though he's somebody who worked really hard and gave away a lot of what he made, possibly to the family, possibly to other people. He's also bringing to mind something, I feel like this is an identifier. He's bringing something either a lost article of his, a lost treasure, not in the sense of like pirates, but like something that he owned that's lost, or possibly what he's showing me is a ring with a stone missing. So I want to know, does that make any sense? Is there any thing that he gave you that was either missing and was found, or that was missing in the family?
Not that I'm aware of. I didn't actually know my grandfather.
Okay. I'm asking him why he's coming through in particular. He's just saying that he's coming through because he says that he's a stronger force to come through than this woman that's coming through, that passed in a flash, that really was easy to love, passed in a flash. I would say some people said before her time, but also, I feel as though she wasn't very grounded. I feel as though,
grandmother.
Yeah, I feel as though she was just very airy and had trouble keeping her feet on the ground and keeping herself afloat, especially if she didn't rely on the family. Meaning that if she was taking care of other people, she would be, but not if it was just her. Does that make sense? I want to know any issues with her, with like a stroke or anything like that before she passed?
She committed suicide.
She committed suicide. Because I was getting in the neck. Did she hang herself?
No, it's a gun.
Okay, gun.
To the head.
Okay, because I was getting something right up here, so I got the flash, but I didn't get that. It's interesting because I don't know how long ago this was, but I usually get very clearly when someone kills themselves. So what it says to me is that whatever drew her to that, she's done a ton of work on the other side of it already. She's over it, because I I talk to dead people for a living, so I get people who kill themselves. But I don't feel heaviness. I don't feel darkness around her. As far as a message for you is concerned, they're talking about you balancing the way that you care for your family. You don't need to mother other people's children, and you don't need to mother other people. Sometimes you can give them a good slap on the face is what they're saying. Like, snap out of it. Like, sometimes I have to yell at my parents and then they thank me later. But beyond that, you don't need to be their social worker or their mother. So I'll leave that with you. Someone's stomach is talking. I sense someone's stomach is talking. Does that resonate with anyone here? Devin, we're actually going to come to you.
But before we connect to my spirit, here's the story I told Ben, the catalyst for doing this seance. I can actually count the number of times I've told this story on 3 fingers. But I guess if you decide to do a podcast about death, you're going to have to talk about death. So this is 1996. I'm in the military. I'm in the Marine Corps. My job is intelligence. I did security clearances. I handled maps. My job is to aggregate that into what they call a big picture of the battlefield. So we're about to deploy for a 6-month cruise. Prior to deploying, we do 6 months worth of exercises for a 6-month deployment. So this was the last major workup exercise. So this is North Carolina. This is Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, Onslow Beach. And everybody's on ship, right? Except for this last group of like 6 Humvees, maybe. So the whole unit is on the big ship, except for the last of the 6 vehicles. The seas get rough, and we can't load the vehicles. So we sit on the beach all day, and one of my best friends, Chittister, was part of S3, and he was with one of his co-workers, Kirkland. Kirkland was a corporal. So we're sitting on the beach, seas are too rough. Then we get sent home that day. And of course, as you do in the Marine Corps, you drink. So we went back, we drank. And again, the majority of our unit was gone, so it was fairly quiet. And so the next day, bright and early, we go out in the Humvees and we sit on the beach and we sit and we sit. They call the seas are too rough. So we go home again that night. Drink some more, drink some more. We spend 3 days sitting on the beach, going back and drinking, sitting on the beach, going back and drinking. And we get to know each other quite well, and we talk about ambitions and dreams, and we got pretty deep. So finally, the 4th day, we go in the morning, seas are okay, and we prepare for this amphibious landing, which was called Purple Star. It was a night assault. I think we'd sit around the ship and prepare until 10 or 11. We're getting ready to launch, and Chittister and Kirkland are going in a CH-46, which is a troop-carrying helicopter. Right before I'm about to get on my Humvee, we're all standing in formation, and I had thought at this point that the helicopters had already taken off. But Kirkland comes down on the well deck, and he handed me his laptop, and he said, "I need you to make sure this stays safe." And I thought to myself, dude, you're landing before I am. Why are you giving this to me? And I wasn't even in a section. And there was something so odd about that moment. And then he gives me this look. There was just something in his eyes and that registered that he knows something that I don't know. I could see it clear as day right now. We were floating around there for a while, and I remember I was seasick, and I was just hanging over the edge and wishing that I could puke to get it all over with. And then there's some chatter over the radio. So I go back in, and I was with the S2 Chief, Staff Sergeant Bennett. There'd been a crash. A helicopter flew into the side of a CH-46 troop-carrying helicopter. And so we're still floating. I'm still in the Humvee, and at the time we were all pretty in the dark. Ultimately, it was the command and control helicopter that had been flown into by the other helicopter, and of course everybody died, and I think it was 21 or 23 people in total died, to include Chittister and to include Kirkland. And so since then, I've always thought and I've always wondered, like, he knew. Like, I can just the look in his eyes, there was like this peaceful fear. So anyway, that's the story. He knew.
I'm going to give you some identifiers. I feel as though there's a male in spirit here. He's showing me fanning the fire. He's actually showing me bellows, but I feel like that is symbolic. I feel as though there's something about pushing it, something about fueling the fire and really just going and going and going. I also feel something going on in my right knee, which I feel like also could be very well symbolic unless you're aware of anyone on the other side with knee issues. It feels to me as though there is a knowing, an introspection, but also putting that aside, just kind of like we were talking about ignoring your intuition, like an introspection, but putting it aside and just going with the intellect instead of the intuition. I'm also feeling weight, carrying a lot of weight on the back, so this could be either doing it for the family or taking care of the family or taking care of someone, and also while doing this work, being cut off from the family. So not being around the family, being away from the family while carrying this burden. I want to know, does this resonate with anyone in spirit with you?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to get some more identifiers. It feels to me as though, oh, this is very interesting. Okay. I feel as though this is somebody in your family tree. I feel as though there's also a showing of military, because I know you told me you were in the military. Is there a male in spirit who is also in the military who was separated from the family for a time?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm feeling with this gentleman, I'm feeling a duality with him. I'm feeling gentleman, and he's telling me this, I would never call him this monster. I feel as though there's something possibly with alcohol with the monster. I wouldn't necessarily say alcoholic, okay, because I would get that, but sort of like can switch into, not necessarily like beating people up or anything like that, but can switch into a real dark side. So gentleman and dark side, mostly gentleman. I'm feeling issues with the spine or the back and also with the root chakra, but it just feels like the root chakra is just from being away from the family. Are you aware of this guy having any issues with the spine or back before he passed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this...
Go ahead.
Just through stories of the family tree, it sounds like someone that is in a generation before I would have ever had a chance to meet them.
Any issues with wearing a backpack in the military or being like a paratrooper or anything like that? Because I just feel a lot of like literal weight on the back.
Nothing more.
Okay, so that could, I said literal, but it could be symbolic. What he's saying is he would have done really well in this day and age where roles are appropriated to what you're good at, because the society and he forced himself into doing everything that he was supposed to do. It's not something that he would have discussed with people, but it was not something that he preferred doing. And the reason why he's saying that, he wore it, like nobody knew this. Like this is what he did. That's what everyone did back then, right? What he's saying about you is he's saying that with your role of just whatever your roles are in life, that you're doing a good job of creating the roles and doing the roles that suit you well. But he says that there's something, and it's so funny because I have no idea about your romantic life whatsoever, but he's saying that there will be an improvement in that area. Again, not that it's in shambles, I have no idea. But there will be an improvement in the area if you step up to some of the stuff that you're not naturally good at, but that you are better at than the partners that you're trying to attract. So it's almost as he's saying that you're too modern because you're just like, I need to find someone who exactly matches what I'm not good at, which you will in some sense, but there's an area of growth. So it's like, if we were to just really say it in like a couple of words, he's saying you need to man up a little bit. and that's totally not my opinion because I'll be honest, I think you're just fine the way you are. But obviously this is not what's coming from me, because he's also saying that, and he's just kind of bringing up as a joke, because I feel like he had a humorous side to him. He's like, it's almost like if you put on like that man spray and all of a sudden like people like come up, you know, like, yeah, whatever that is. But it's just like, you know, you spray it and then everyone's like, oh, you know, like whoever it is that you want to attract. So someone's growling over there. Yeah. So he's picking a fight with him. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, he's not saying it's terrible. He's just saying it's a subtle tweak. And he says, you already know. He says, you can stop talking, Betsy. You've gone past your time. So he's telling me to talk too much. So I'll leave you with that. You're welcome.
Do you consider yourself to be a fellow seeker? Do you believe there's something more to being human than what's available in the illusory cocoon of our material world? Or perhaps you're thinking of starting an existential scavenger hunt and would like a guidebook to help chart your path? If yes, you're in luck. Go to theadventuresofmementomori.com and sign up to receive D.S. Moss's upcoming book, Something to Believe In, a seeker's guide to finding your big belief. Sign up today and start your journey.
So, what do you think? Before I tell you what I think, let's get critical and check back in with paranormal investigator Joe Nickel.
Well, people do want very much to believe, and the paranormal, by and large, promises something pretty profound.
For the record, Joe was not at the seance, nor has he listened to it, and as a true scientist, he does not make comments on things he hasn't seen. His comments in the story are based on decades of paranormal investigation.
And these are all emotions, and people have hopes and fears, and appeals to their hopes and fears can bypass their critical thinking ability. So you can have people who are quite intelligent, quite able to use critical skills and analytical ability and so forth, but if you give them an apparent message or a possible message from their dead father, they don't use the organ above the neck. They're feeling it in their heart or their gut reaction, or they're responding to it with emotive power. And all the talk of someone like me will have little effect because we're not talking on the same level.
And then I asked him, but what if you can't prove that a medium is not communicating with the spirit on the other side?
Well, this is a classic, what's called in logic, an argument from ignorance. Argumentum ad ignorantium. I can't prove, you can't prove. Try it. You can't prove there are no leprechauns.
Exactly.
You know, and I don't mean to trivialize the importance of this. I've listened to many of these experiences. They're very moving. They're very profound to the person they've happened to. But we need to understand what they are, and they're a type of wish fulfillment. They're not evidence for a supernatural realm.
I actually agree with Joe on this one. The right and left sides of my brain are always at odds with each other, and this time, the left side won. It's not evidence for a supernatural realm. What I just said is part of the original ending to the episode. It was followed by how I want to believe, and how, in actuality, we only can comprehend just a sliver of what's happening around us, and so maybe, in some form, we can. But in terms of Ouija boards and waking dreams and seances, I don't believe. However, something very interesting happened. For some reason, I went back through the transcripts one more time, and I started to notice things that I hadn't before.
He's showing me fanning the fires.
Kirkland died in a helicopter crash, and there were flames, and the blades of the helicopter were fanning those flames.
It feels to me as though there is a knowing, like an introspection, but putting it aside.
The whole point of the seance was to see if he knew that he was about to die. An introspection that he put aside because he had his job to do.
I'm feeling issues with the spine or the back.
Kirkland had actually suffered a significant back injury when falling from doing an Aussie rappel. Now, am I just connecting random dots? Probably. Did she also say things that just didn't jive? Of course. Do I need to spray some metaphorical axe and man up? God, I hope not. But it makes you wonder. And I'll leave you with that. Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Adventures of Memento Mori. A special thanks to Psychic Betsy for her time and good energy, to Joe Nichols for his rational mind, to the other participants of the seance, and to Ben. Thanks, dude. Please visit our website, remembertodie.com, to find out more about the work these folks do. I am DS Moss, back in 2 weeks for the next episode with more The Adventures of Memento Mori.
The episode was produced by Josh Heilbronner and DS Moss. Theme music composed by Mikey Ballou. This has been a production of the Jones Story Company. Until the next time, remember to die.
Are you doing that?
Living each day as if it were my last? No, but I've made small changes. For instance, every morning when I get out of bed and I put my glasses on, I say to myself out loud, "Death, yo," just as an acknowledgement. And then, more importantly, I've enrolled in a breakdancing class because I'd never forgive myself if I died without first learning how to pop and lock, yo. And with that, thank you for joining me on the first episode of the Adventures of Memento Mori podcast. A special thanks to Everplants.com, Cynthia Beale at Natural Burial Company, Elizabeth Meyer, and Devin Martin of Lifestyle Integrity. Please visit our website, remembertodie.com, to find more information about the wonderful work these folks do. I'm DS Moss. Back again next episode with more Adventures of Memento Mori.
The episode was produced by Josh Heilbrenner, DS Moss, and Hannah Beale. Theme music composed by Mikey Ballou. This has been a production of the Maida Creative Company. Until next time, keep seeking.